CTV News at 5 with Hudson Mack.
The Our Place Shelter and Drop-In Centre in Victoria is looking for a new executive director. Just 5 months after replacing Reverend Al Tissick at Our Place, Sandra Danko is quitting. Danko says she's resigning so she can take a position outside the province that she feels is more in line with her personal career goals. The Our Place board says it'll look for an interim executive director until a replacement can be found to allow the existing staff to focus on day-to-day operations. Danko's resignation is effective November 25th. She was hired just in July to replace the former executive director, the Reverend Al Tissick, who announced his retirement at that time. Well, Saunders Subaru on the West Shore in Greater Victoria is giving back in more ways than one to the West Shore community. The Saunders Foundation gave away nearly $30,000 last night to help various local charities around the community. The money was raised over the year to donate to the Men's and Women's West Shore Minor Hockey League. And the money is going to be used to help pay for ice time, extra development camps, and funding for tournaments. Schools in the neighborhood got a boost as well to help pay for books and class field trips. The Saunders say they are simply carrying out a family tradition.
When we were brought up with my mom and dad, they didn't have a lot of money to give, but they always gave their time and energy. And we're the same way. We coach, we support, we do a lot of things without expecting anything in return, and that's how we were bred.
Saunders Subaru has been supporting various charitable efforts in Greater Victoria over its 32-year history, including tireless support each year for the Tour de Rock. And the Canadian Cancer Society received a generous donation today. The Victoria Police Pipe Band and the Greater Victoria Police Chorus presented a check to the charity this morning in memory of Alex Campbell. The police chorus performed in October at the memorial service for Alex Campbell. Together, the groups raised $25,000, and the money will go to support Cops for Cancer and the Tour de Rock.
We are wrapping up the 2011 Tour de Rock, which was a fantastic success with over $1.5 million raised. So that is over $16 million in the last 14 years. And now right at it again for next year, planning the 15 years. So we're very excited to thank the communities on Vancouver Island for 15 years of fighting back. But we're not done yet. We have to continue on. So already in the planning stage, already police members out there talking about riding next year.
If you'd like to make a donation this year or find out more about that 15th year, go on to the website at cancer.ca. Community Living BC says it has strayed from its core values in a recent interim report.
CLBC's interim update for their vision for ensuring that people with developmental disabilities in our province and their families are provided with the highest quality supports possible.
It is the latest report into the beleaguered agency. BC Social Development Minister says mentally disabled adults no longer will be forced to move from group homes against their wishes, except in certain circumstances. A 3-year CLBC strategic plan will now be developed to try to rebuild lost trust following the closure of group homes and the removal of specialized services. The province says its priority is to ensure that people are allowed to continue living where they want, even if they have reached the age of 19. But the NDP says CLBC is no further ahead now than it was yesterday.
I didn't hear anything new. I didn't hear anything new from that interim report, and I think that's what's going to disappoint a lot of people. There are people who are struggling, and there are people in dire straits right now, and they wanted to see action, not just words that we've heard already.
The minister says 63 families have come forward with concerns. So far, the province says 21 of those problems have been resolved. And the campaign known as It Gets Better for gay, lesbian and bisexual youth got a supportive boost today from the province. The children's watchdog says she and the province are taking a stand for young people who are dealing with discrimination. In honor of National Child Day, Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond and several members of the gay and lesbian community contributed their stories and words of support in a new video. And that video highlights personal experiences with homophobia and bullying and discrimination while growing up. The child's representative says she hopes that more school districts will embrace the program.
We have about 15 school districts that have adopted good policies, but there's a lot of more work to be done. And so a lot of the kids came out today to talk about, how they don't want to feel bullied in their schools and they want to be supported. They consistently report that they don't feel they have anyone to talk to in school, often with their peers, the staff. And we need to make positive efforts in those schools to have that change. A lot of times they experience a lot of depression, withdrawal, not accepted, and we need to change that. We can change it, and we need to make sure that they're supported.
The It Gets Better project was launched in 2010 in response to suicides in the community of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgendered youth. Our colleagues at our sister station CFAX 1070 were celebrating today, and we want to congratulate as well somebody who is truly an institution in Victoria news media, a very familiar voice. Today marks Frank Stanford's 30th year on the air at CFAX. Frank was applauded for his outstanding work in our community and presented today with some gifts and a plaque. Of course, there was pizza and a cake. Frank has some advice to anyone who is interested in getting into the news business. You need one thing.
Curiosity. Be curious about everything. You know, it's that's the wonderful thing about it. You don't need to be a specialist in anything, but you do need to ask the questions about everything.
30 years doing it is a huge accomplishment, and we're so proud of Frank. And for him to be with CFAX for that long, it's quite a bonus for us as well.
Frank's been covering stories and covering the beat for 3 decades in Victoria, and not just at CFAX. He's been in broadcasting for 40 years. And of course, listeners know they can hear Frank's view on all things editorial at 8:15 weekday mornings on CFAX. A BC ferry smashed into the dock at Departure Bay in Nanaimo this afternoon, a hard landing that damaged the berth and the vessel. The Queen of Coquitlam came in hard just after 2 o'clock. The vessel was docking at Departure Bay after an uneventful crossing from Horseshoe Bay. The passengers on board say they got a quick warning from the chief steward over the public address system just before the ferry hit the dock.
The chief said, brace yourselves for a hard landing. And then, yeah, after that, everyone had to sit down. The boat shook, and yeah.
You did hear a boom, boom.
Nobody was hurt in the hard landing. Passengers and vehicles were able to disembark as usual. The vessel has now been pulled out of service as BC Ferries investigates what went wrong and looks into repairs that may need to be made to the ferry and to the berth.
We did have to cancel the afternoon sailings of the Queen of Coquitlam, so that was 2 round trips that we've removed from service. The Queen of Oak Bay, which is the other vessel operating on the run, will continue to operate on her regular schedule. But because it is a Friday night, we are recommending customers traveling between the Nanaimo area and the Lower Mainland, they may want to consider using the Tsawwassen Duke Point run tonight.
BC Ferries is bringing the coastal celebration to Departure Bay from Swartz Bay. It goes into service tomorrow morning in place of the Queen of Coquitlam. Also on the ferries today, an angry group of pirates took over a ship in the waters off Vancouver Island. The swashbucklers boarded a BC Ferries vessel at Buckley Bay this afternoon, traveling across the water to Denman Island. They're staging a protest over BC Ferries' plan to introduce a cable ferry service on that route.
This one seems to be working just well. I think it's the second most successful small island ferry that we have right here. So why exactly are we trying to do something different?
There's a lot of dubious goings on with this cable ferry idea. But the thing that worries me the most, Bucko, is that they're telling us that this is not experimental, that there are cable ferries that go across long distances and are as large and across the ocean and the open waters and all that. But it's all hogwash.
BC Ferries has issued a request for expressions of interest to see if any private companies with experience in cable ferries would like to operate one on this route. People on Denman Island say they didn't get any consultation about the plan. They like the service they have right now. They also believe that a cable ferry would be less reliable and might present safety concerns as well. Tomorrow is Election Day in British Columbia in municipalities, school districts, and regional districts up and down Vancouver Island. Thousands of people will head to the polls to elect mayors and councillors and trustees to represent them at the local level for the next 3 years. In Nanaimo, the turnout at the advanced polls was significantly higher than it was in the last municipal election 3 years ago. The chief elections officer for the city hopes that's an indication of strong interest in this year's vote and a signal that the polls will be busy tomorrow.
The voting places are open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., except for the one voting place on Protection Island, which is open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we have 12 voting places throughout the city. So if you go to www.nanaimo.ca, and there's a link through to the voting places map.
Preliminary results will be posted on most municipalities' websites within a few hours of the polls closing tomorrow night at 8 o'clock.